All right, so good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Celebrezze. I am the GreenSpot coordinator for the city of Columbus, and welcome to our GreenSpot conversation. Today, I'm really excited about our topic today, which is green purchasing and procurement policy benefits. It's something in which your business or your organization can do to really have a positive environmental impact. If you're not familiar with our GreenSpot conversations, they were developed by our GreenSpot Advisory Board, and they're a way to touch on different topics of sustainability that are in our community and really help folks along to live a little bit more sustainably or operate a little bit more sustainably in their life. So before we jump into this topic, I do want to mention that in terms of sustainability, the city views sustainability kind of like three pillars. You have environment, and economy, and equity, or people. When you have those three things all going in the same direction, that's when you have sustainability. And if you've seen any of our previous conversations, you know what I'll say next. That's when we really thrive as a community, and that's really what we want to do. We just don't want to sustain, we want to thrive. So with GreenSpot, if you're not familiar with it, it's a program the city started that inspires, educates, and recognizes households, businesses, and community groups that adopt sustainable practices. We also have our GreenSpot neighborhood program as well, and we provide a framework to think about sustainability and an online dashboard in which you can track some of your successes. I'm not going to read what's on the slide there, but you can see how many members that we have. You can go to columbusgreenspot.org to join. It is free to join, free to be a member. In our GreenSpot universe, these are some of the savings that we have seen. Now, these are really probably underreported, so I would say you could pack on probably another 50% or so, and that's really what you get in terms of what our community is doing to be more sustainable. All right, so on to today's topic, which is the green purchasing and procurement benefits. So green procurement policies are a way to assure that your company is purchasing products that are more environmentally friendly than other products. It's another way your organization can have a positive environmental impact. And today we're going to cover what a green procurement policy is, how to create and implement one, and what to avoid. So we do have two excellent speakers today on this topic. We have Aparna Dial, who is with the Ohio State University. She has a distinguished public service record with over 25 years of administrative, strategic, and operational experience. As the Senior Director of Sustainability and Strategic Services, she leads sustainability initiatives, refuse and recycling services, facilities contracts, central maintenance, and landscaping services like roads and grounds for the Ohio State University, as well as the Wexner Medical Center. Aparna plays a key role in establishing a national and internal reputation of sustainability through collaborative teaching, pioneering research, comprehensive outreach, innovative operations, practices, and policies. She's a member of the President and Provost Council of Women and the President and Provost Council on Sustainability. She has an undergraduate degree in civil engineering from Osmania University, India, and an MS in civil and environmental engineering from Utah State University, and an MBA with a focus in finance from the Fisher College of Business and the Ohio State University. Always good to have the Buckeyes represented, so welcome, Aparna. Our next guest is Kristen Dameron. She is an environmental health and safety professional at Hikma Pharmaceuticals USA, Inc. Kristen specializes in environmental sustainability and graduated from the University of Finland with a master's in environmental health and safety management, and she holds several professional credentials. Though science is her profession, Kristen comes from an arts background and loves music, making music, and art in her free time. Welcome, Kristen. All right, so while I switch screens here, Aparna, I'm going to turn it over to you. So let me pull up your screen, and I will mute myself because I'm sure people are tired of hearing from me already. Let's see here. I think my computer thinks it's Friday.
There we go.
All right, are you able to see it?
Yes, thank you so very much.
And Aparna, it's a little bit hard to hear you.
Can you guys hear me now? I'll just speak up. Is this better?
That's
Thank
better.
you. So really excited to be here. I just want to know, it's not a big fact, but all of Ohio State's buildings are green spots. We certified the whole Columbus campus during the first 2 years of the program being started. So it's a great program. It's really great to be here. And the purpose of this presentation is really twofold. It is to share with you some of our sustainability gains, particularly in how we integrated sustainability across the supply chain enterprise at the Wexner Medical Center. But I think primarily it's also to contribute to this dialogue about how we can further accelerate the commitment to sustainability at our respective institutions. Next slide. For those of you that are not familiar, The Ohio State University is the third largest university in the country, as Ohio's best and in the top 20 public universities in the country. We are further distinguished by a top-rated academic medical center, a premier cancer hospital and research center. And given that we are a land-grant research institution, we have a physical presence all throughout the state of Ohio, whether it's our regional campuses, research centers, or our outpatient facilities. And I'm really proud to say that US News and World Report ranked us again as #1 hospital in Columbus, and we have spent 29 consecutive years on the best hospitals list. And we have a number of specialties that are ranked nationally as well. Next slide. So sustainability has been important to the university for a number of years. In some cases, we've had initiatives for decades. I started the university sustainability office back in 2004. It was ahead of all of the Big Ten, the Ivies. Maybe there was one other sustainability office in a campus setting, of course, in California. But it still took us a while to have institution-wide sustainability goals, which we established. They are in the arena of teaching and learning, research and innovation, outreach and engagement, and resource stewardship. So the goals you see on the slide here are our resource stewardship goals, and it's all about reducing the environmental footprint of our day-to-day operations. As you can see, carbon neutrality, which is our most aspirational goal, and resource conservation, whether it's reducing energy or water usage or diverting as much as we can away from the landfill to our zero waste goal, and of course our environmentally preferred product standards, which we're going to talk about today. Next slide. So for the Wexner Medical Center, we also have a sustainability council. So you have to set up a framework within your organization to set up goals, because you cannot manage what you don't measure. So that's the first step. So for the medical center that I'm going to talk about today and how we integrated it in the supply chain, we have a sustainability council made up of department leaders. So they are in a position to set goals for their department. They're in a position to drive policy, create guidelines, and push change in the organization. By the way, we also have a green team of over 700 members that are engaged in educational efforts, voluntary sort of awareness, creating seminars, lectures, and those sorts of things. So you can see the gamut of the goals that we have for the Wexner Medical Center in this arena, and these are aligned with the larger institutional sustainability goals, as well as with our strategic plan priorities for the medical center. Next slide. So here is the approach that we use, and I'll talk a little bit more about each of these steps. I already talked about the adoption of sustainability goals and how, so this is sort of a step-by-step guide on how we integrated sustainability into our supply chain. But the biggest takeaway here is that purchasing managers, supply chain, commodity managers, leaders have a lot on their plate. They're balancing a lot of priorities, right? They have to source products. They have to make sure that these are efficient. They have to take into account particularly the client preference for like clinician preference for these products. They have other mandates like making sure they meet cost requirements, diversity requirements, so forth. So if you go to them and say, oh, by the way, now you have to also make sure you have to incorporate environmental needs or sustainability, that's necessarily not their expertise. And in some cases, not their passion. So you can't do that, right? You can, but your chances of success, I'm not sure how successful you would be. So the biggest takeaway here is to make sure you rely on your sustainability professionals or to do the heavy lifting to take those pain points away. Next slide. So in our case, we took the lead in developing the sustainable procurement guidelines. So we did not reinvent the wheel. So that's another takeaway. Look at what's out there that already exists. So I sit on our group purchasing organization's National Advisory Council for the Environment. So I chair the council. So it's made up of a whole bunch of hospital systems. And we looked at together, we created what we call the standard, right? So what does sustainable procurement mean? What are those attributes that make a product more sustainable? So we looked at 23 environmentally preferred sourcing attributes, like eliminating certain chemicals of harm, like DEHP or PVC, latex-free, again, flame retardants. How do we move away from some of those types of products? And then we added to that through Energy Star requirements or certifications and EPEAT requirements. So again, leveraging the learning that already exists. Kaiser Permanente is a leading hospital in this space. They've done this work for a while. What can you do there? And then creating the sort of guidelines, taking that lift away from the supply chain department if you can, and creating that tool for them is really, really important. Next slide. And again, learn what your sourcing process looks like. What are those pain points? What are the steps within the sourcing process? And how can you integrate sustainability at each of these areas? So say you're going out for to buy gloves. So look at that category spend, look at what the requirements are for those gloves and say, hey, where can you incorporate sustainability in there? Say you want to buy latex-free gloves. Then look at the supply chain markets and say, hey, are there manufacturers that are local, or can you even buy this product? And then make sure this also still meets the guidelines that they want from a performance standpoint, right? And then give your research ideas to the sourcing manager. And then be part of the sourcing team if you can. Include questions on your RFPs. Make sure it's included in the evaluation matrix. And finally, make sure it's in the contracting language. And then help supply chain develop a transition plan and put a measurement tool in place to see that you can monitor and manage and reassess periodically in terms of how successful this approach has been. Next slide. Again, this just looks at, it's a snapshot of what your RFP, how we've incorporated sustainability into our RFP process and how it's a part of the matrix. It's only 5%, but at least it's there and people are thinking about it and ranking products, not only based on performance, supplier diversity, but also sustainability. Next slide. Data analytics is really, really important. And we worked with, again, with our group purchasing organization to create this dashboard. So we looked at the opportunities, right? That's what you see the bar chart is to say, hey, where can we do better? It's great to know that we are doing well, but where can we do better? And the snapshot at the bottom right, which says 72%, tells you that out of all of our purchases, 72% of them now have environmentally preferred attributes. So when we started this process, our baseline was less than 2%, but we were able to get to 72% in like 18 months, which is remarkable. And it's hundreds of millions of dollars of spend. And just in over 1 year, we increased our spend. We went from 241 to 339 million, over 100 million in spend. And then you see all these different dials that just indicate the extent of attributes. So our platinum standard is that it has all of the 11 chemical and 2 waste positive attributes, and that's 18 million of our spend nearly is the platinum standard. So again, having the data, having the transparency to guide the decision-making process is really important. Next slide. So I also wanted to talk a little bit through case studies, right? So if you've been on campus lately, we have a lot of construction going on. The medical center itself is going to add 5 new buildings. Once these are built, it's 3 million square feet of additional space. Our new inpatient tower itself is 1 million square feet. So we took a heavy lift over a 2-year period of time. we created our own set of building design standards that are sustainable, like LEED, like you may be familiar with LEED. We created Ohio State-centric standards using our in-house expert. It was a 2-year process. Then we looked at also what goes inside our buildings. So in this case, we said, oh, we need flooring, paint, and ceiling tiles across all of our facilities. And we also do not only the new ones, but we also do refresh projects, which are like going into existing space and rejuvenating them. So instead of bidding out each project, we put out one RFP for all of these. And we build buildings for 50 years. And we want to make sure whatever products we have also last. So doing this created that efficiency for process. And then if you have the same product across all your buildings, it helps with your brand, aesthetics, even general operation and maintenance. And it reduced our first cost because we really leverage economies of scale. And then if you look at the environmental attributes, you can see that over the life cycle, our costs are also lower. Next slide. We already talked about this. This just shows you how we incorporated the requirements we wanted, whether it was eco-label or recycled content or bio-based. And again, it's part of the evaluation matrix. Next slide. This is the type of report you can generate, which is very important, again, to measure and give that feedback and celebrate some success. So this would be for a refresh project where you got rid of the old carpet, put in new, but you have take back requirements. So it's a circular economy. You're giving the carpet manufacturer the old carpet and they're using that to make the new carpet. So you get 2 gains. 1, you're avoiding landfill waste because you didn't send it to the landfill, and 2, you're reducing the carbon footprint from the carpet because it has high recycled content in the manufacturing process versus something that's made from virgin materials. Next slide. This is another case study. So across all of our hospitals, we have 3,000 locations where we have sharps containers. These are needles where you get your shots that they're disposed of. So it used to be we had single-use containers. So we had to ultimately dispose of the single-use containers and the sharps in the landfill. These are inefficient, costly, and during COVID, we had a lot of supply chain shortages. So we worked together with our supply chain department to institute reusable containers and a service program. So not only are these much more efficient and cost-effective, they're safer, reducing the number of needle sticks, and each reusable sharp containers can be used 600 times. And we are 2/3 of the way through implementation, and we've already diverted over 37,000 pounds from the landfill. And we'll do that annually, and then think we are going to save about $200,000 in costs. Slide. This was a surgeon-led event, so if you can find those employees that are passionate, that want to drive change, help them. So they wanted to eliminate styrofoam from our OR packaging, and we went to a bio-based plastic, and it felt at first like a small change, but if you roll it across 127,000 units across the system, just in that hospital, by the way, not even across a pavilion, that's 21 tons of reduction annually, just from that one change in the OR pack. Next slide. And again, what are the key takeaways? You can, but I don't know how successful you will be. Sustainability has to be integrated seamlessly into the day-to-day work. You cannot think about it as on top of everything you do, you have to do this too. And do all of the heavy lifting, understand the pain points of supply chain or wherever it is you're trying to integrate the chain, and try to take those pain points away. Involve as early as you can. I showed you the process diagram. Incorporate sustainability early within the process, and then identify those leaders within supply chain that can help move the needle. In our case, after the tremendous success we had so quickly, we were able to advocate for a new position within the supply chain department, and that sourcing manager focuses on diversity, which is also part of sustainability, by the way, edge minority business, and environmentally preferred products. And then again, set your priorities, right? Don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try a pilot approach, try a case study approach, try to demonstrate those successes, and set your target areas based on your data And again, hold your suppliers accountable on performance. Next slide. Here's just a snapshot of, it has to be a holistic approach. David, I think we're running short on time. I'm not sure what we're doing on time, but here's just results. And I'm sure, David, you can share these with everybody. They can look at it, whether it's through our reductions through our telehealth or diversion of our waste in a particularly medical care setting. 16% of our electricity comes from renewable sources, and it's 100% for our off-campus locations. Next slide. And all these efforts have led to recognitions both locally, regionally, and nationally. And thanks again for this opportunity, David, and hand it over to Kristen.
Great, thanks, Aparna. One thing that really struck me, especially at the beginning, is measure, measure, measure. So a lot of times I think I'm guilty of this too. You just want to jump right in, right? And start doing solutions. But if you don't know what you're trying to solve, you're not going to be very successful with that. And sometimes it is like taking a deep breath and going at it a little bit slower to realize, okay, here's our waste. What is our waste? Maybe doing a waste audit to figure out what are those things that can be recycled, what are those things that can't, where something can be composted. The one thing that we're looking to do here, is doing a waste audit, and that could help you inform on your recycling program too, whether that's successful or not. And I really liked how you said that, this is not something that's really looking at it on top of existing work. It's more integrated into it. So there's, as we move along, we realize that, that we could operate more sustainably, which, in my opinion, means better, right? And there's also that money savings involved with it. So it's just helping the folks out to get to that point, and realizing that, acknowledging that, the purchasers and the folks who deal with that on a daily basis, they might be overwhelmed. So what can you do to try to help them along? So Kristen, we're going to turn it over to you here in a second. If anybody has any questions, you could either, if you're on the Facebook, you could type them in the chat, and we'll get to those that way. If you are joining us and through the WebEx webinar here, you can type the question in the chat. And so we'll get to your questions here in a second. I do want to turn it over to Kristen here. She is with Hikma Pharmaceuticals, and they've done a lot in terms of sustainability. And Kristen, just when you're ready, just turn your camera on, and I'll just take a quick moment to say the city has a green procurement policy as well. It was adopted by City Council in 2018. And basically, I'll get to it here at the end. But basically, it says if you could purchase a green product or service, for the job that you're looking for, then you should do so. It's kind of an oversimplistic view, but or description of it. But the ordinance says a lot more than that I'll get to here in a second. So Kristen, I don't know if you can see my screen, but whenever you're ready, take it away and just let me know when to advance the slides.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can everybody hear me? All right, great. My name is Kristen Dameron. I am in environmental sustainability. Actually, I'm in environmental health and safety, but I am the environmental specialist for Hikma Pharmaceuticals. We are a generics pharmaceutical companies. Our goal is to make life-saving medications affordable and available to all people across all walks of life. We make solid dose, liquid dose, nasals, all sorts of different types of pharmaceuticals. We make over-the-counter as well as prescription medicines. Today, I would like to talk a little bit about our green purchasing initiative. If you'd like to move forward, Dave. Thank you. Green procurement, that's something you might hear referred to as environmentally preferred purchasing or sustainable purchasing. Many different names for it, all meaning the same thing. It's purchasing of products and services that have a reduced negative effect on human health and the environment when they're compared to other types of products. This evaluation takes place in many, many forms, especially as Aparna was saying, there you look at what they use all across clinics. We here look at what we use as far as raw materials. Are these sustainably produced materials? Are they sustainably packaged? Are they sustainably distributed? Because there can be many different ways of receiving a product, whether it be by packaging or the way it's shipped, that aren't as sustainable as some other ways. If you can get bulk distribution to you rather than just pieces and parts and several different pieces shipped separately, that is ideal. Can you reuse this product? Can you do maintenance on this product to keep this product running for a really long time? Disposal of the product. As Aparna said, they look at different types of materials, removing those out of their streams. If you remove things like latexes, remove things like plastics out of your materials where you can, that can help you to more sustainably dispose of these products. Or can you look at recycling this type of product? Is there a product that you can get that is from a more recycling friendly material than another product? Many, many different ways to attack this. That's just a few. Sometimes sustainable purchasing means not making a purchase at all. It means trying to reuse something that you already have available to you, or trying to do something in a different way that can help you to avoid purchasing that product. One of the ways that we do that at Hikma is when we are trying to get to capture hazardous wastes, especially liquid wastes from our labs or vial wastes from our labs. We already have drums that come in with our materials that we order that are rated to handle these types of waste. Rather than buy a new drum, we will rinse those drums and reuse them for another place. You can get pretty innovative in reusing materials that you've already got in another manner. That's just one of the many, many ways that we try to avoid purchasing at all so that we don't bring more materials into the stream. Go ahead and next slide, please. Thank you. Green procurement is something that any company can do, whether they be a really, really large company like OSU that has just very impressive, if I'm honest, very impressive policies as it pertains to sustainability, or a smaller company like Hikma, or even something as small as a corner bodega. You can always figure out a way to purchase sustainably. Not only does that show your community, which is really important, good environmental stewardship. It shows that you care about the environment that the people around you live in and you care about their health. But it also can save you money. It can save you money through reuse of products. If you're able to reuse materials like the drum example that I just explained, you can save many, many dollars, especially over a period of time. A lot of those drums, even if we buy them reconditioned, are going to cost a couple of $100s. If you can save a couple of $100s over 5 drums per week, that really adds up. Not only does it save money, but it saves that material from being out in the stream, landfilled, or even recycled. Recycling takes energy and money as well. It reduces repeat purchases. If you can get something like reusable dishware versus disposable dishware, even if you just have a small office, that can definitely save on your footprint as well as money spent on those types of materials. And of course, there's reduction in transportation and disposal costs for any sort of waste, whether you're paying for landfill pools or something like hazardous wastes or medical wastes, etc. You can eliminate or greatly reduce those transportation and disposal costs for many of those materials. Not only are you reducing those costs, but you're also reducing carbon footprint by eliminating a lot of those greenhouse gases that are released into the atmosphere through transportation. Green procurement, of course, helps to improve the environment by conserving those natural resources used in manufacturing goods. If you think about the amount of water and energy, as well as trees, that it takes to create just a cardboard box, it is massive to be able to save production of those new materials. So you're conserving natural resources as well as energy and water at the manufacturing source, as well as in your facility. You're able to generally conserve energy and water. Minimizing pollution and avoiding health hazards. Again, This is not just within your facility, but this affects your greater community, which is massive. Saving space in landfills. Landfill space, as you know, in the United States and in the world is shrinking. We certainly don't want to continue to use our oceans as a landfill either. So reducing the amount of waste that is created at all, having some sort of waste minimization policy in your purchasing is huge in helping for our future generations. And of course, the more we use a product, the more readily available and affordable it becomes for us and the masses. So if we are using recycled materials, if we're using paper that's recycled, and there is a greater demand for that, more companies are going to move to creating those sustainable products. So the more we actually spend on sustainable products, the more readily available and affordable they will be to people of all walks of life. Again, this is huge in equity because the more we as larger companies use these, the more people are going to be able to afford them at the individual level. Next slide, please. So the first thing you want to ask yourself, again, as a smaller company or a mid-sized company, you're going to be able to have maybe a little bit more influence as this goes. Is this material or product needed something that I can get from another department? Here at Hikma, we take any office supplies. We have an area down in our mail room where you can take binders that you no longer need, where you can take tape dispensers that are no longer needed, staplers, etc. Any type of office material that we can reuse, we have in a cage down there. It's our reuse store, basically. You can go down there and just pull binders off the shelf and reuse them so that avoids having to buy new ones. This can be done, of course, at any size company, as long as you have an area where you can set this up. And is a really great way to save money and to save on materials. Another question to ask, is this material product needed available for purchase as a reconditioned product, like a reconditioned printer ink cartridge or recycled printing paper? We also, as far as the drums go that we had spoke about earlier, we also buy reconditioned drums. If we do need to buy the material instead of reusing a material for a certain waste stream, we will buy reconditioned. We have contracts in place to buy reconditioned drums that have been used previously so that we're not buying virgin materials. This is something that you can actually work with your purchasing department to put into contracts. It's a questionnaire. It's part of our questionnaire for our new suppliers and for existing suppliers as well. Do you have any products available that can be reused or are sustainable as far as manufacturing practices, as far as reconditioning, et cetera? And that can really be integrated into your purchasing procedures and questionnaires so that this isn't something that's missed when this is available. It also gets those suppliers maybe thinking about the possibility of adding that if they don't already have that in their repertoire. Another question, do I even need to buy a new product or can this be fixed? Can I fix this arm on this broken chair rather than buying a new chair? Can I fix this machine that is breaking down? Can I source a new part to fix that instead of replacing the entire machine? Many, many times, if we ask ourselves just a few questions before we hit that add to cart button that's so easy to hit, we might find we can avoid the purchase altogether, save ourselves some time and some money, or we might find that we can find a more sustainable option as well if we just take the time to do a little bit of research on these materials. Next slide, please. Sometimes, again, it's impossible to avoid procuring a new product. So if it is determined that you need to purchase a product and it's absolutely necessary, there are still ways that you can stay green with this. Make sure that you're buying a material that is good quality, that will last for a long time, especially if you're buying a virgin material that you cannot buy reused. Try to look at reviews, look and see how long these things last. What is the quality? Sometimes it's worth spending just a little bit more money initially on a product that is going to last you for a long time. If you can, can I buy this product from recycled materials? Is this something that's sustainably sourced? Is it something that has been made in a sustainable manner? If this product breaks, will it need to be replaced, or is this something that I can perform maintenance on? Is this something that I can keep going for a long time? Another one that a lot of people don't really think about is the production and the shipping of the material as energy efficient as possible. I'm sure a lot of you have seen before, you might get something from Amazon or from Staples, and it's a pack of pens, and they put it in a large box with a bunch of air packing. That's not sustainable. That's not a great way to ship these. Oftentimes, if you do see that materials are being shipped this way, you can reach out to the shipper, to Staples, to Amazon, and ask them to package it in a more sustainable way. Many of these companies do have small recyclable envelopes that they are able to package those in. We have actually reached out successfully to these companies and had them change the way that they're sending the materials to us, so that they're sending them all at once if possible and in more sustainable packaging. And finally, can I recycle the product or the package with the supplier? Is this something that I need to send out to a recycling company, or is this something that I can actually send back to that manufacturer or supplier for them to recycle? Oftentimes we do this with large bulk liquid totes. We're able to send those back to Mauser, who is the actual manufacturer of those materials, to be reconditioned and resold. That's something that a lot of people don't really know is an option that they can use with suppliers, but it's definitely something that you can not only add to your purchasing contracts and your questionnaires, but something that you can oftentimes ask the sourcer, and many, many times this is available. Or again, it might be something that you spark and add to their repertoire. Next slide. So again, we're a medium-sized company, relatively small in the scheme of things, especially as compared to Ohio State University. But these are some very simple, very low level and very accessible ways for any company of any size to start a green procurement process. So please, if you have any questions or concerns, I'm here and available. And of course, I'm also willing to have Dave share my email, and you can certainly reach out to me on anything that you might have any questions on. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. That's awesome. One thing that you had mentioned that really struck me was, it is a way to close that loop, right? So we all recycle, a lot of us recycle, but if we're not buying that recycled material in forms of products, then that recycling has nowhere to go. And so it's really just prolonging before it gets to the landfill. So by buying that material, you're creating the market for it and supporting jobs in that manner. Also, sometimes things cost maybe a little bit more expensive that way for right now. The price might drop in the future. But what you can do is look at, your sustainability program as a whole. So how much money have you saved? Is there, you changed out the lights to the LEDs. Is there a way you can carve out some of those savings for things that might be a little bit more expensive now? So it's another way to kind of think about it.
Absolutely. And you can also run return of investment on a lot of pieces to show the company, even if you have to invest in a larger piece for recycling. For instance, we recently invested in a tipper for our cardboard baler, but we were able to bale all of the cardboard in the facility that way. So that $60,000 was easily recovered in 5 months from our blue dollars received from cardboard recycling. So that's a huge thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example. And looking out, whether it's 5 months, 6 months, a year, when you start seeing those savings come in. And it's something that you could add into your yearly sustainability report, that if you do one for your organization. But I want to get to if we have any questions. So if you have any questions, write them in the chat or on Facebook, just comment on it. We do have a question. Are you able to share how your company cleans the water waste you spoke about earlier? So
Is that for Aparna or for myself?
I think that's for you, Kristen.
As far as water waste, there are many, many different ways that we approach that depending on the type of water waste. Some materials that we use, for instance, purified water. We use purified water in a lot of our waste streams, and there is some spent material from the carbon activation. We are able to reuse that spent water in our cooling towers. So we're able to reuse that instead of putting it back out into the water stream to go to the municipal water treatment plant. There are other materials as well that go into our water. For instance, some of the materials that are, for instance, acetones, methylene chlorides, etc. We are able to filter those out through the water, and we do monitoring on all of our water as well, very regularly. Any water that we are able to reuse, we even reuse rainwater around here. We capture rainwater and reuse that in our sprinkler systems. Anywhere that we can reuse water, we will reuse water. We do water monitoring as far as any pharmaceuticals in the water. We'll capture rinse waters and treat those to make sure that we don't put pharmaceuticals out into the environment, etc. So many, many different ways that we treat that wastewater and ensure that we're reusing wherever possible.
Great. So I guess I just have a quick question for Aparna and for Kristen. And Aparna, we'll start with you. In 20 seconds or less, and I know this is an impossible task, but do you do like regular check-ins with your store keeps or your purchasing folks to see if they have any questions or just to see how the green procurement is going?
We do monthly check-ins. And sometimes twice a week, we have a value analysis team. They forecast what categories we're going to buy or spend in. And then we have that integrated into the conversation on a bi-weekly and on a monthly basis. We look at results, evaluate trends, and, 100%. That's why the data is really important to have the dashboard. And I just wanted to make a comment, David. One thing that the trap people fall into is the first cost. You need to look at life cycle costs, and you also need to look at resilience for the organization, like supply chain shortages, and how reusable items build that resilience within the organization itself. But my apologies, I have another meeting to go to, so I need to jump off here. And I'm dial.15@osu.edu. I think David is going to share our slides, and there's contact information. So again, my apologies. I'd be happy to answer any questions even after today.
Great.
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye. So Kristen, in 20 seconds or less, do you all have like regular check-ins with the store keeps or the purchasing folks to answer any of their questions or to make sure that things are going okay?
Absolutely, yes. Not only do I myself physically check in with them just through emails as I'm doing reporting, but we also are lucky enough to have a global executive leadership team that sees sustainability as a very important piece. So we have a monthly energy team meeting that I, as well as engineering, are involved in, where we actually do these checks and balances throughout all of the different departments in our company.
And that's awesome. I mean, that's something too, where it's like not only, you have this green policy on paper, but it's in practice too, and it's regular check-ins. I think a lot of organizations, if you put something out there, and there's like a big splash, everybody kind of does it. But then over time, if you don't keep with it, people kind of forget about it. You have turnover, things like that. So having regular check-ins with folks to let them know that it is important to the organization, it helps make that culture of sustainability.
And that's what it's about. It's about culture. As long as you are making sure that your higher ups, whether that be the owner of your company or executive leadership team, et cetera, buy into this and put that in policy as much as you possibly can, that goes a really long way in helping to sustain this. And something that I just thought about, I did want to also bring up to everybody, if they're not aware, Ohio EPA has a marketplace website where you're able to network with other companies around Ohio and see if they've got something that they want to get rid of that you can reuse, and you can also put your own materials on there as well.
Yeah, is that the Ohio EPA materials marketplace?
Yes.
If you Google that, that'll be probably the first thing that comes up. Yeah, it's a great program. So I do want to just have a couple definitions here that we've already kind of covered this, of what green procurement means. And then I know we're out of time, but I did want to have this up on the screen, that the City of Columbus's green procurement policy that has been around since 2018. So I do want to thank Kristen and Aparna for taking time out of their day to be not only to be on here, but for the prep work that went into it. Thank you for those who watched. And I hope you can join us for our next GreenSpot conversation, which is actually going to be in a couple hours. So that one's going to be more on the household side of things with how to have an energy efficient home. So I appreciate everybody's time and I hope you enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you so much.
Let's see.